Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Scott Jennings hits the nail right on the head, and this entire CNN panel just has to sit there and take it. This is absolutely fantastic. But before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to our great sponsors over at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have the cure to buy inflation and Harris economics, but more on that later. Now, let's dive in.
This is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
And the Democrats can't do it. They don't understand how to. And again, I love harping on this point because I love talking about political coalitions. I sort of wrote my thesis in college on it, though it was a terrible thesis. I had mentally checked out at that point. But ultimately, the Democrat Party used to be almost on a perfectly straight line between centrists, leave me alone centrists, and corporatists. And those centrists were a combination of libertarian centrists, some libertarian leftists, and some people that I call the new atheists. And they all had one thing in common, just one. They looked at the evangelicals in the GOP and went, y'all are crazy, okay? We don't want you dealing with us. And to some extent, and this is someone as an evangelical, arguably an ex-evangelical, but I still maintain many of my roots. When I go back home, I'll be attending an evangelical church. And in that regard, they had a point. All right, there is some issue with the evangelical side going a little bit too overboard. For instance, a lot of the abortion bans, as much as I despise abortion, some of the laws were written so poorly that they just failed entirely. And there's a huge conversation needs to be had about why it works in Georgia and Florida and why it seems to not work anywhere else. But I'd love to talk about that later. Hey y'all, I'm not exactly looking at retirement anytime soon, but my parents are. And friends of my parents are. And I'm sure either you or someone you know is looking at retirement and wondering, what do I do? How do I help prepare for this in this economy with this terrible president and with a vice president who basically coup d'etat him and is now looking to run for president herself? How do you protect against this? Well, simple. You go over to my friends at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have something called the Retirement Package Plan. This plan backs your wealth with gold and silver accounts. And furthermore, you will have direct access to these accounts. So you're not at the whims of Wall Street. You're not at the whims of inflation. You are in command of your own destiny. As a bonus, qualified applicants can receive up to $10,000 in free silver, plus a couple of other little goodies that they're going to package up for you, and you're going to be able to protect your wealth and your retirement. So go over to this link in the description below at colonialmetalsgroup.com or call this number 800-203-0422 and see how they can help you prepare for retirement today by backing your account with gold and silver. Don't delay your retirement, folks. Protect the money that you earned with Colonial Metals Group. They're here to help. The Democrat Party, however, took those centrists, said, we're going to take you for granted, and we're going to start pandering to the real leftists, the people who want to trans your kids, the people who want to put men in women's sports and men and women's bathrooms, and basically the kind of people who think that they're really protecting instead of nurturing. And this appeal to the authoritarian side, ultimately what ends up happening is that they crave more and more power, and so that kind of arcs. So there's this weird arc, almost this right angle, so to speak, on the left. And it's from the corporatist side, and they know if they move from the corporatist side down to the centrist, they lose the corporations, they lose their gravy train, and the corporations are going to have to deal with Republicans who are not happy with them. But ultimately, the Democrats can't address the issues. They can't address the problems because they kind of created them over the past 3.5 years. So, this panel, and this is the real meat and potatoes of what this video is, and maybe I should have led with this. This panel right here is in silence because they know that someone is teaching them what they did wrong. They are quite literally being coached by a Republican saying, hey, this is my view from the other side, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting this right. And no one is opposing him. Van Jones will usually say something if he hears something wrong. And I actually have a bit of respect for the dude. If he thinks you said something wrong, he's going to pipe up and correct you. He heard nothing wrong. Anderson Cooper, same thing. I couldn't tell who the other two panelists were, but there were 4 panelists listening to Scott. And not one of them said a single word. They sat there, they took their medicine because they've realized that deep down, oh, we screwed up. And we screwed up bigly. And they know there's going to be no easy way to change this. Ultimately, this is pretty much what happened after 2004 with the Democrat Party. They had no idea why they lost to Bush. They've been calling him an idiot in the media. They've been talking about Halliburton nonstop. The Abu Ghraib prison. I think that's how you pronounce it. They were talking about how Dick Cheney was directly profiting off the war. They thought Americans would listen to this and go, wait a minute. We don't want George W. Bush anymore. Well, no, the economy had gotten better. We were still united after 9/11. And we were currently successful in the war. It wasn't until 2005 did for lack of a better word, the dam started breaking. We appointed the worst possible person to run Iraqi operations, and he immediately outlawed everyone within the Ba'ath Party, which means that there were 10% of men in Iraq that were now never allowed to have jobs. Terrible policy, and it ruined Iraq. We were doing great up until then. Then the response to Katrina was botched on all levels. FEMA screwed up, Bush didn't look good, and the Democrat leadership of both the state and the city of New Orleans were just caught flat-footed when there was a PBS special that came out and multiple warnings saying, hey, here's the data. If a storm hits you at Category 3 or higher at exactly this point, and by the way, exactly this point when it comes to a hurricane, pretty wide margin here, the levees are going to break and New Orleans is going to flood. And the Democrats that ran things did nothing because, well, Democrats can't govern. And so they were so confused in 2004 how they could have lost. They had the same confusion again, but they had the ability to rebrand, move a bit further to the left while holding to the center under the Hope and Change campaign that was Barack Obama. And then they knew the media would continue to run point. And that's the big thing here. The media can't run point anymore because the Democrats have a glass ceiling when it comes to votership. They have the exact same turnout in 2012, 2016, 2024. There's one anomaly, and that's going to be a longer story for another day. But the media knows that it has basically reached its highest potential. The high watermark of the legacy media ended, I think, with the 2000 election, and we're now seeing the downstream effects. And it's beautiful. So, folks, these guys are taking their medicine. And the worst part about this, the worst part, they all knew this was coming. They all knew. But because these guys are all pawns on a chessboard, they are all cardboard cutouts made to have certain reactions at certain times. That's why these people are here. They're not there for their honest opinion. They are there so producers can plug in certain people at certain times to get exactly the kind of outcome they want. It's chemistry in action. However, that chemistry, well, they're not getting the product anymore. They've reached their ceiling. And they've realized that in two of the past three elections, actually in the past two elections, turns out that Republican turnout is stable. So there's a new sheriff in town, there's a new wave, a new coalition coming in, and the Democrats are stuck in neutral, and they're going to be stuck there for a long, long time. And I'm here for it. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Political Brawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.